Welcome everyone. Greetings. My name is Nicola Ferri. I am the compliance officer at the General Fisheries Commission for the Mediterranean and the Black Sea of the FAO, also known as GFCM by its acronym. And I will be your host for today's event, moderating the discussions. Before moving on to the details of our program for the webinar, let me give all participants some information which I am sure will be very useful to all, the so-called housekeeping rules. There should be a slide popping up on the screen with the rules. Here it is, perfect. So rule number 1, interpretation is available in English and French. You can select the language you wish to listen to from the bottom of the bar at the Zoom window on the screen in front of you. Please note, though, that this option is only available if you're using the desktop version of Zoom. Rule number 2, we also invite you to be very active through social media, and in particular on Twitter, using the hashtag GFCM Online Forum. It's very important that we make dissemination efforts, so please be as active as possible and try and promote this initiative. Rule number 3, after the interventions from our esteemed panelists, who will be introduced shortly, we will have a Q&A session. Please be informed that you can submit your questions for this session using the dedicated Q&A space that you will find again at the bottom bar of the Zoom window. We will take notes during the webinar so as to be able to address select questions to the relevant panelists or to the GFCM Secretariat staff. Please, in order to better identify the person submitting the question, we kindly ask you to add your full name and, in parentheses, your affiliation. For example, the name of the organization you represent or the name of your country, research institution, university, and so on and so forth. It's very important for us to be able to identify the person who is asking the question to the panelist. And after the webinar, most likely sometime this week, we will be circulating an email to all registered participants. Our intention is to share some of the materials that will be presented during the webinar, as well as additional information that relevant organizations have recently prepared on the impacts of COVID-19. There are some very interesting documents which were prepared by, just to name a few, our parent organization, that is the FAO, by the Global Environment Facility, the GEF, and by and Development, the OECD. We do think it's very important that we disseminate this information as a takeaway message so that you can remain abreast of most relevant developments on the topic being addressed today. And though I cannot make any promises, this email that I mentioned and that we are going to send to register participants next week will recap all questions that are going to be asked via the Q&A. Since the time we have today for questions and answers is quite limited, I am afraid that we won't be in a position to take all the questions that will be raised from the audience. However, we will do the best we can to coordinate the formulation of responses to all questions and circulate these responses as an additional support material next week. We surely don't want you to leave this webinar with more questions than answers. So from the slide is that you do not need to take any pictures of the slides and the PPTs that will be presented by the panelists, because you will have with you the PPT next week. So having outlined the housekeeping rules, and we are now, I think, removing the slide and going back to gallery view. Having outlined the housekeeping rules, let me now, on behalf of the GFCM Executive Secretary, Mr. Abdallah Sroor, wholeheartedly thank all of you in the audience currently connected from so many different countries and locations and time zones for taking the time to join us. We would probably have a total figure of participants by the end of the forum at 4:30 p.m. Rome time. We have people from specific countries, people who work in international, regional organizations, NGOs, civil society organizations, academia, university. So the audience is very broad, and this, I think, is a token of the interest in the topic that we are addressing today. Hopefully, we will not be disappointing such, a very informed audience. As you know, the reason why we gather today remotely for the very first webinar in a series of 3 organized by the GFCM is that we jumpstart our online forum called Building Fisheries and Aquaculture Resilience post COVID-19. This particular webinar that we are hosting today will focus on the experience of specific international organizations in response to the COVID-19 crisis. There will be 2 other webinars next month, which will address aquaculture and small-scale fisheries, respectively, and the impacts the COVID-19 crisis has been having on these 2 sectors. We have already circulated a save the date, per se, for these events, and we hope, obviously, that you all be able to join us again. The online forum was launched by the GFCM because already back in early March, when many countries took the decision to enact emergency measures to contain the spread of COVID-19, we thought that our work and the various sectors that we regulate could potentially face severe social and economic impacts. We hence diverted our focus to this issue and tried to shed light on what was happening as a result of COVID-19 in our region. The first preliminary analysis carried out by the GFCM Secretariat, partly based on information shared by our member countries and partly based on information we could retrieve from the press, was published in April. Mr. Schroer will cursorily present this analysis under the next item of our program, so I will not be anticipating what the contents are of this analysis. As of then, as of when we issued our preliminary analysis on COVID impacts on fisheries and aquaculture, we are pleased to see that many other organizations adopted a similar approach. This has helped tremendously in terms of knowledge building, dissemination, preparedness, and responsiveness. Indeed, international and regional organizations are in a perfect position to understand and study what is happening and steer common actions accordingly. So today, you will have an opportunity to appreciate specifically our organizations in our geographical area, namely the Mediterranean and the Black Sea, and areas which are in close geographical proximity, in particular the Eastern Atlantic, have been adapting to the new normality, the so-called new normality, which has been brought about by the COVID-19 crisis. You should know that significant efforts are being deployed as I speak to put us back on track. In this regard, you will have the opportunity to hear from a group of expert speakers sharing their informed opinions with you. Now, let me introduce them. And I will start with the GFCM Executive Secretary, Mr. Abdallah Sroor. I don't see Mr. Sroor. Thank you very much, Mr. Sroor, for joining us. Mr. Sroor will be accompanied by a panel of distinguished and renowned colleagues, namely Mr. Darius Campbell, who is the Secretary of the Northeastern Atlantic Fisheries Commission, also known as NEAF by its acronym.
Good afternoon, everyone, and I'm very honored to join you today from a very hot and sunny England. And thank you for keeping your 2-meter social distance from me. So I look forward to the rest of the day.
Thank you very much, Darius. Yes, we're gonna make sure we social distances is implemented and enforced as need be. Then we have Mr. Camille Manel, the Executive Secretary of the International Commission for the Conservation of Atlantic Tunas, the ICAT.
Thank you, Nicola. Thank you, everybody, and I hope everyone is fine with this in these specific and difficult circumstances. And thank you, GFCM, for inviting me and giving us the opportunity to share our experience in facing this COVID-19. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Manel. The pleasure is ours, and we are very pleased to see you. I would like now to introduce Mr. Abdelwahed Ben Abou, the Executive Secretary of the Ministerial Conference on fisheries cooperation among African states bordering the Atlantic Oceans, the ATLAFCO, also known with this French acronym COMAFAT. Mr. Benabou.
Voilà, effectivement. Donc, bonjour Nicolas, bonjour Abdullah, bonjour chers collègues. Je suis vraiment ravi de pouvoir participer à ce premier webinaire et j'espère que cela se passera bien, qu'on pourra rééditer l'édition très bientôt. Donc, je suis à Rabat, au Maroc. C'est là où se trouve le siège de notre organisation. Merci. À tout à l'heure.
Merci à vous, Monsieur Benabou. C'est vraiment un plaisir de vous voir. Et je pense qu'il y aura un petit probablement délai à cause de la distance entre nous, mais pas de problème, on peut toujours attendre, c'est un plaisir. I would like now to introduce Mr. Gaetano Leone, the coordinator of the United Nations Environment Programme, Mediterranean Action Plan, Barcelona Convention, UNEP-MAP. Gaetano.
Good afternoon. It's a great pleasure to be here with everyone. I think it's a very difficult moment, and the fact that so many of us are here putting our brains together is a good sign in terms of cooperation and finding solutions that require everybody's involvement. A big thank you to GFCM for organizing this. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Gaetano, for taking the time to join us despite of your very busy agenda. Thank you, it's our pleasure. And finally, Ms. Irina Makarenko is the Pollution Monitoring and Assessment Officer of the Black Sea Commission Secretariat. Irina.
Thank you, Nicola. Good afternoon to all the colleagues. And it's indeed a great pleasure to join this online forum. And I would like to thank you not only for the invitation, but also for organizing such an important event in these challenging times for all the organizations that participate. So I'm honored to be one of the panelists, and it will be my pleasure to share with you some information later today. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Irina. The pleasure is mutual. And aside from our distinguished panelists, and once again, I would like to thank, because it's not that evident that people of that kind of stature take the time to join us and to be with us. So again, thank you very much. I would like now to introduce some colleagues from the GFCM Secretariat who are going to be helping us with this webinar. And in particular, helping us to ensure smooth functioning. Now, the list includes, in particular, Mr. Miguel Bernal, our Senior Fishery Officer.
Hello, good afternoon, everybody.
Good afternoon, Miguel, and Ms. Anna Carson, the Fishery Officer for Socio-Economic Issues.
Good afternoon, everyone. Looking forward to our discussions.
Splendid. So without further ado, I'd like to close this introductory portion of the webinar and move on to the next item on the program. This item is the keynote address on the GFCM analysis of the impacts of COVID-19 on the fisheries and aquaculture sectors. It is my pleasure to pass the floor to Mr. Abdallah Sroor, the Executive Secretary of the GFCM, who will be delivering this address. This intervention will be supported by a PPT, which we will share with participants after the webinar, as I said, and will be delivered in French. So again, let me remind you that interpretation is available to those of you using the desktop version of Zoom by clicking on the icon at the bottom of your screen and selecting the language. Monsieur Sroor, je vous donne la parole.
Merci, Nicolas. Tout à l'heure, j'ai dit bonjour, mais probablement, il faudrait dire aussi bonsoir à quelques participants à qui, donc, maintenant, peut-être c'est le soir ou la nuit. Donc, c'est un plaisir, donc, pour moi de présenter l'analyse de la CGPM sur l'impact de cette crise de la COVID-19, donc, sur le secteur de la pêche et de l'aquaculture. Et c'est avec un plaisir, donc un grand plaisir que je ferai donc cette présentation en se basant donc sur cette présentation PowerPoint. Alors, je vais aborder donc quelques premiers éléments de cette analyse portant sur l'impact de la COVID-19 sur la pêche et l'aquaculture dans notre zone d'application qui est la Méditerranée et la mer Noire. Évidemment, on le sait tous, cette crise sanitaire sans précédent créée par la COVID-19 a eu une incidence importante sur les filières de la pêche et de l'aquaculture dans de nombreux pays de la région, notamment en raison des restrictions drastiques mises en place dès mars 2020. On le sait tous, ces restrictions comportent des limitations de voyage, de déplacement, de confinement chez soi, d'économie, donc des secteurs économiques qui sont complètement fermés. Et donc, on a eu plusieurs formes de ces restrictions. On a voulu, évidemment, comme toutes les organisations, suivre la situation, c'est un devoir. Et c'est ainsi que nous avons compté sur une méthode de travail donc, qui consiste à avoir une interaction très active avec nos parties contractantes et parties non contractantes coopérantes. Donc, on a circulé un questionnaire et ce questionnaire nous a permis d'avoir des informations les plus actualisées et les plus complètes possibles de la part de nos pays. On a eu également des consultations très poussées avec les organisations partenaires et on a fait une analyse, une revue assez exhaustive des articles de presse et des médias qui s'intéressent au sujet. La période concernée par cette analyse est mars-avril 2020. Et évidemment, l'objectif de cette analyse, c'est de pouvoir évaluer l'étendue des impacts de la crise sur le secteur, donc en ayant des indicateurs chiffrés donc, par rapport à tous les maillons du secteur. Également, pouvoir recenser les meilleures pratiques utilisées dans notre région face à la crise. Nous avons vu que tous les pays ils ont eu une réaction rapide, et donc il y a eu des mesures et nous avons voulu recueillir surtout les meilleures pratiques. Ça permet également de fournir des éléments de réflexion à intégrer dans la stratégie CGPM donc, après 2020. Donc, c'est une stratégie que nous devons mettre en place et nous avons profité donc, de cette analyse pour pouvoir intégrer des éléments pertinents au niveau de cette stratégie de manière à pouvoir donner toute la priorité donc, que mérite ce sujet. Et évidemment, l'objectif également, c'est d'avoir des éléments pour pouvoir contribuer au débat régional et international. L'exemple d'aujourd'hui en est un exemple très concret. Les partenaires, donc on a travaillé évidemment avec toutes les administrations et institutions techniques au niveau de nos pays. Nous avons consulté le secteur de la pêche et nous avons également pu interagir avec des ONG et des organisations internationales telles que la FAO, le GEF, l'OCDE, WWF et autres. Évidemment, on le sait tous, il y a eu un focus et un intérêt international par rapport à ces sujets. Notre analyse a eu sa part. Je pense que l'analyse a été reprise dans de nombreux médias de la région et au-delà. Donc, depuis The Guardian jusqu'à Pyongyang au Vietnam, il y a eu plus que 10 000 vues sur les réseaux sociaux et plus que 500 interactions avec retweets d'importantes organisations et de partenaires. Évidemment, le fond du sujet est celui-là, donc pouvoir évaluer les incidences et passer en revue les mesures prises par les pays. Comme première incidence, donc on a constaté une diminution jusqu'à 80% du nombre de navires donc, en activité du fait des restrictions imposées. Donc, surtout dans cette première période, donc, il y a eu donc, un maximum de veille et un maximum d'attention par les pays. Et donc, les restrictions, elles ont été très, très strictes, parfois ne permettant pas des activités d'avoir lieu. Et c'est le cas de la pêche. Et par rapport à l'aquaculture, donc, il y a eu une baisse importante d'activité des fermes aquacoles. On sait très bien que plusieurs fermes, surtout au niveau de la rive sud, comptent sur le secteur de l'importation par rapport à, donc, à toute la matière première et donc à toutes les nécessités premières de ce secteur. Évidemment, avec la fermeture des frontières, les opérations d'importation ou d'exportation n'ont pas été faciles. On a eu également une baisse de plus de 75% de la production dans la plupart des pays, donc due à la diminution des exportations, la fermeture des restaurants, donc, entre autres. On a constaté également une baisse des prix de 20 à 70%. C'est lié essentiellement donc, à la diminution de la demande et des exportations. Et du coup, donc, on a constaté également une nette diminution des revenus des fermes aquacoles et des activités de pêche. Je voudrais bien souligner à ce stade que ces résultats étaient liés à cette période du mois de mars et avril. C'était des résultats temporaires. Bien évidemment, les pays, ils ont eu le temps de réagir, d'essayer de vivre avec le virus, de se déconfiner progressivement. Et donc, on a vu un effort énorme donc, à revenir vers l'activité, à revenir, donc, ouvrir l'économie. Et certainement, ces données ont changé et on est en train de travailler sur une mise à jour qui apparaîtra sur une analyse qui viendra, qui arrivera très bientôt. Donc, on aura certainement une mise à jour par rapport à tous ces chiffres. La réaction de nos pays a été très vite et très rapide et très variée. Donc, on a eu des réactions par rapport à l'hygiène et la sécurité, fermeture de ports, par exemple, mise en quarantaine des navires étrangers, clôture des marchés de poissons à ciel ouvert, désinfection des ports et navires, fourniture des masques aux travailleurs et sensibilisation à tous les niveaux par rapport aux mesures sanitaires. Par rapport au marché des produits halieutiques, évidemment, l'intérêt des pays, c'est de pouvoir assurer une continuité à la provision alimentaire, développer des livraisons à domicile et trouver des mesures, des moyens alternatifs pour faire acheminer le poisson au consommateur. Donc, on a noté que le secteur de la livraison d'achat par Internet donc, ont très bien marché. Donc, il y a eu également soutien à la production, des campagnes de sensibilisation des consommateurs afin de maintenir le niveau de consommation au niveau donc, de la normalité. Et évidemment, plusieurs pays ont pris des mesures d'atténuation des impacts économiques, des mesures par rapport à la protection sociale, donc assistance sociale, assurance santé, allocation chômage et mesures pour le marché du travail, renforcement des investissements dans le secteur. Évidemment, je fais là un étalage de toutes les mesures prises. Ça ne veut pas dire qu'elles sont toutes prises au niveau de tous les pays. Alors, les conséquences de cette crise donc, sanitaire sur les activités de la CGPM et de notre fonctionnement, nous avons procédé au report des sessions des organes statutaires et de leurs groupes de travail, ainsi que les manifestations de haut niveau qui étaient prévues en 2020. Nous avons également reporté toutes les activités d'assistance technique sur le terrain et des activités prévues par les projets en place, en particulier tout ce qui concerne la recherche sur le corail rouge, l'anguille, campagne en mer, campagne sur les prises accessoires, assistance technique et autres. Mais évidemment, il a fallu s'adapter aux situations. Donc, on a mis en place de nouvelles modalités de travail, un télétravail, technologie extranet, réunions en ligne. Et l'exemple d'aujourd'hui en est donc un. Nous avons profité de cette période pour renforcer la liaison entre la CGPM et ses pays contractantes, ainsi qu'avec ses partenaires. Donc, on a pris le principe d'avoir une mise à jour mensuelle complète donc, que nous soumettons à nos pays. Nous avons également des consultations avec les membres sur des questions stratégiques et des négociations avec les donateurs. Donc, on a profité de cette période. On a assuré un bon suivi de la mise en œuvre des décisions et de questions d'application. Évidemment, c'est une période très spéciale. Il a fallu faire attention donc, au niveau d'application des mesures qui sont en place. On a profité également pour reformuler des projets de recherche pour lesquels on n'avait pas suffisamment de temps en raison des réunions nombreuses, mais maintenant, en absence de réunions, donc on a pris tout le temps pour développer davantage donc, ces projets et donc mener les premières étapes préparatoires qui ne nécessitent pas de réunion avec présence physique ou de déplacement. Nous avons également travaillé sur la finalisation des publications, et déjà quelques publications, elles ont été publiées, donc déjà partagées donc, avec tous nos partenaires. Et nous avons profité également pour aller de l'avant dans la préparation et mise en œuvre de nouveaux projets. C'est ainsi que 2 projets importants d'un montant de 12 millions de dollars du GEF donc, ont été endossés et nous sommes sur la phase de mise en œuvre et nous sommes en discussion très avancée par rapport à 2 grants, à 2 subventions de l'Union européenne. On espère boucler ces négociations donc, durant les 2 ou les 3 semaines à venir. Et également, nous avons renforcé nos contacts sur des sujets importants à travers l'organisation d'activités virtuelles. Et l'exemple du forum en ligne, c'est un excellent exemple. Comme conclusion, je voudrais dire que la crise de la COVID-19 a mis à l'épreuve la résilience du secteur et a mis en relief ses forces et ses faiblesses. Les leçons tirées permettront d'assurer une meilleure résilience à l'avenir. La crise a fourni une opportunité à la CGPM et à ses partenaires de réfléchir ensemble à une stratégie après 2020 plus structurée et plus efficace. Nous avons adopté un plan de retour à la nouvelle normalité à travers 3 étapes. Donc, on attend déjà une première étape qui consiste à la levée des restrictions liées à la COVID-19 au niveau de la FAO et des instances onusiennes, ainsi qu'au niveau du pays hôte qui est l'Italie. Au moment où toutes ces restrictions sont levées, donc on a convenu de passer à la vérification des restrictions au niveau national susceptibles d'affecter les activités de la CGPM. Une fois qu'on a ce contrôle, on décidera sur la reprogrammation de toutes les activités prévues pour l'intersession 2020. Le bureau de la CGPM continue à assurer la coordination avec les parties contractantes et les parties non contractantes coopérantes en vue d'un retour au fonctionnement habituel dans les meilleurs délais. Pour clore donc cette présentation, je voudrais vous faire part de quelques priorités donc, pour l'avenir telles que vues par la CGPM. Donc, nous voudrions bien analyser les impacts sur le secteur et les effets de la réduction de la pression de pêche sur les ressources biologiques. Nous voudrions également identifier les meilleures pratiques d'adaptation et les mesures visant à assurer la contribution du secteur à la sécurité alimentaire et au bien-être économique. Nous voudrions également fournir un accompagnement pour renforcer la résilience du secteur face à la crise actuelle et en vue d'éventuelles crises futures. Faciliter l'adoption de mesures au niveau régional, sous-régional et national afin de consolider la place du secteur dans l'économie bleue. Et enfin, nous voulons renforcer et continuer notre assistance technique au pays afin de mieux s'adapter donc à ces situations. Et merci bien pour votre aimable attention.
Je vous remercie, M. Srour, pour ce discours d'ouverture où vous ce webinaire est fourni un aperçu éclairé sur la base de l'analyse préliminaire préparée par la CGPM concernant les impacts du Covid sur la pêche et l'aquaculture. Donc maintenant, on attend la mise au jour de cette analyse qui, si j'ai bien compris, sera disponible à partir du mois de juillet sur le site web de la Commission, du Secretariat en fait. We're now ready to move on to the next item on our program. This is our technical panel focusing on a discussion about the impacts of COVID-19 and the work towards building blue economy resilience. The discussion would focus on the preliminary assessment of the impacts of COVID-19 and the consequences of the ongoing crisis, as well as the work of regional organizations towards the so-called new normality. Let me welcome again our distinguished panelists and thank them for participating in the webinar and contributing to the discussions with their vast expertise. And I'll invite each of you to deliver your intervention, some of which will be made orally, while some others through a PPT, either in English or French. Now, let's break the ice with Mr. Darius Campbell. I was, frankly speaking, impressed with the clarity of his contribution, which is supported by a PPT. And I'd therefore like to invite all of you to pay close attention to what he's about to tell you. Darius, over to you.
Thank you very much. Can you all hear me? And can you see the slides?
We can hear you fine. We cannot yet see the slides.
Is it showing yet? It should be showing.
Not yet.
Let's try again.
Maybe we can upload it directly as we have the file with us. So Mattel will be taking care of that.
I can try again. I'm trying again.
Okay.
Let's see if it does it again.
Oh, we can see it now. Perfect.
Okay. All right. Sorry about that. Okay. Well, thank you very much for the kind. We'll cover aspects of COVID, impacts on NIAFC in terms of our administrative and operational aspects. First of all, I think just to say that our objectives continue as normal, but this is really a little background information so you can compare our situation perhaps best to the Mediterranean and the Black Sea situation. First of all, our convention area, unlike GFCM, our regulatory area is in areas beyond national jurisdiction. So that means the focus of our monitoring, control and surveillance is beyond 200 nautical miles. But of course, we also have NIAFC measures all sorts. So I'll explain a little bit how these link into the impacts of COVID. So the first thing to think about is in terms of our contracting parties, we have a variety of experience in terms of their social and economic reliance on fisheries, but also and Greenland, who also actually rely on fisheries a lot, are all practically COVID-free. So for those of us in other countries, we look on with jealousy. They really have no incidence or almost zero incidence of COVID. Other countries like Norway have much lower incidence of COVID again, but other countries, European countries, the Russian Federation, of course, we also have higher incidence. And these in themselves, as already we've had explained by Abdullah, have different impacts in terms of lockdown periods, the relative freeing up of human activities, markets, processing, restaurants, and contracting parties. And also, if you think of our fish stocks in NIAFC, not only do we have the fact that most of our fisheries are, that we manage at least, are beyond 200 nautical miles, but also the fish themselves, in terms of, say, herring, mackerel, and blue whiting, and some of our deep sea stocks, are more resilient to COVID shocks than other types of vessels, so types of fisheries. So the size of vessels involved are quite large. They're going on longer term voyages, and also that the fish themselves tend to go more to storage, to processing, or to distant markets. So they're not relying on the fresh fish trade so much, or the restaurant trade. So that makes us relatively resilient in our fisheries. And as far as I can see from looking at our catch reports, which again, I can really only look at April's data, they haven't been hugely depressed compared to other fisheries bodies. And in terms of monitoring, control and surveillance, the VMS systems, the electronic systems, they're all carrying on much as normal. So although staff might be based back at home, whether they're at the fisheries monitoring centres or the NIAFC headquarters, they're working from home effectively. Much of that work is going in terms of data between FMCs, ports, inspectors, etc. That's all done through remote servers and is carrying on, I'd say, fairly normally. Their physical, most ports were suspended at the peaks. For those ports in countries where COVID is no longer a big issue, of course, they can free up some of the port inspections and carry those out through socially distanced observations of landings. And also in terms of the at-sea inspections that we do, again, the long distance voyages of at-sea inspectors are now able to carry on. But again, they're much tighter protocols in terms of the precautions the inspectors take, and the way that they must do boarding and inspections on the vessels. The other thing to say at the sea and at port, of course, is there are other opportunities to improve checks. So that can be done, for instance, with greater detail of checking landings and sail status that we might not normally do. In terms of NIAFC, we have an unusual situation compared to most RFMOs, where we have an independent scientific advisor. We don't do any science within NIAFC, and that advisor is ICES, the International Council for Exploration of the Seas, and their model of having groups of independent scientific experts to produce advice has basically carried on as normal through remote working. They've had an internal survey done within ICES, and that shows that their experts are fairly happy with that work, and the work is carrying on fairly effectively. So in light of this, we don't expect the scientific advice this year to be suspended. Most of it will be delivered on time, but there will of course be knock-on effects next year, maybe when certain research vessels and surveys have not been able to continue this year. And of course, there will be differences in terms of catch uptake compared to what was expected as a result of COVID. So currently the science is okay, but it'll be interesting to see what happens next year. Then in terms of the Secretariat, we are a small Secretariat with an office in central London. Luckily for us, due to family connections, we're very well informed on the medical risks in March. So actually, even though UK locked down a few weeks later, we went fully to home-based working from the 10th of March, virtual meetings for our smaller groups. So that has continued smoothly as usual. The transition to remote working for our bigger permanent committees has been a bit more challenging, given the lack of familiarity of some of our participants with that process. So at the early stages, there was some learning to do, but nevertheless, our permanent committee on monitoring compliance met in April and finished its full agenda within a shorter time than usual. So in terms of our meetings, our experience, I'm sure, is the same as many of you. The attendees have gradually become more and more familiar with remote working. The meetings have gone more and more smoothly. We observe the usual meeting etiquettes of turning off microphones and videos. I see people are used to doing in this meeting as well. And using messaging and hand signals to speak, and finding timing to respect time zones, although we don't have a big problem with that in that most of our contracting parties are within a couple of hours of each other. One thing we've also done to help our meetings is to have much more explicitly annotated agenda items, so that we expect attendees to read those, to prepare their points they want to make sure they've got all their papers printed out and available. And I think this, along with no coffee breaks, of course, means that the meetings have genuinely been effective, but shorter than usual. But we, of course, have to acknowledge that there is some lack of depth of discussion, and the more difficult discussions, which normally are managed through chats in the margins of meetings, there's a handicap in dealing with those. So I think the conclusion is we can cope through a solution. But I think one thing colleagues as well in other RFMOs is that actually those countries with less capacity to travel, normally due to financial restrictions or distance, are actually better able to attend these virtual meetings. And I think for the future, we need to think about that, perhaps involving more virtual meetings mixed in with the physical to assist those countries. So my last slide is thinking of our annual meeting, which we're looking forward to in November. We're in the same position as many RFMOs, that it's very, very difficult for us to predict what might happen by November. We could end up with delaying our meeting to 2021. We could possibly go ahead with a full physical meeting or with reduced attendance, or we could relocate our meeting to somewhere incidents in practice. And we could end up with a virtual meeting or a mix of a physical meeting and a virtual meeting. Each of these has its strengths and weaknesses, and we're going to be making the decisions about that with our heads of delegation over the summer. Whatever options my heads of delegation choose, I'm sure we can make that work. One of the things that I've just been looking at very recently over the last week is there's now video conferencing available, which is not just a video meeting, but one where you have tables, meeting rooms, other buildings to meet for delegations. And I think that might be something that might help us come to a decision. I'm sure that we can make whatever my heads of delegation choose to work and to be an effective meeting, and that we will continue as an effective RFMO over the next year or so until the impacts of COVID have reduced greatly. So thank you very much for the time you've given me. I hope I haven't gone too much over the time. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Campbell, for sharing with us the experience of NIEF and how your organization has responded to the COVID-19 crisis. NIEF, of all the RFMOs, has always been known as a leader, and you're now at the very forefront in coming to grips with the impacts of COVID-19. So, you know, it's very encouraging. Keep it up. Je voudrais maintenant m'adresser à M. Kémy Manel, qui intervient en nombre délicat. Dans les cas délicats aussi, nous souhaitons profiter naturellement de l'excellente coopération entre nos organisations pour pouvoir faire, on l'espère, face ensemble aux impacts de la COVID-19. Cher Camille, je vous prie de prendre la parole et vous avez une intervention orale qui sera faite en anglais. Je vous passe la parole.
Thank you very much, Nicola. So the story about ICAT facing COVID, I'm going to tell you, is not backed by a PowerPoint as the first two presentations. And just starting saying that for those who are not familiar with ICAT, we aim to maintain the population of tuna and tuna-like species at levels which will allow the maximum sustainable catch in all waters of the Atlantic, including the adjacent seas. While pursuing this objective since 1966, something suddenly happened this year and disrupted the system. So the COVID-19 has been an impetuous intruder and is overstaying. Its arrival has caused major upheavals at all levels. Countries took several measures: state of alert, shutdown, travel restrictions, bans, strict safety measures, telecommuting, etc., that impacted the work of the Commission, which faced unprecedented situation. Then, how are we responding, because we are still working on it, how are we responding to COVID-19 to maintain our core functions related to statistics, research, advice, decisions, and MCS mainly. So the objective was to keep business as usual as much as possible, but adjustment was needed because of the COVID-19 stubbornness. With the spirit to give all CPCs the same opportunity to participate on an equal footing in any discussions and decisions, the Commission started a process to seek the best response to the situation. Hence, a progressive adaptation to the consequences imposed by the COVID-19 has been followed through successive consultation led by the chair with the different bodies and the CPCs. And then, so the reaction came. The immediate consequences have been to decide rescheduling meetings, because so far, most of the decision, most of the building of agreements on conservation and management measures have been done through in-person meetings, with the hope that the situation will get to normal in few months. And at the Secretariat level, so the Secretariat has been closed since March 16th. The staff telecommuting with the shutdown, and we have internal coordination, mainly with Microsoft Teams and the WhatsApp and other communication tools that we can optimize. And we have experienced also changes in the meeting calendar for 2020, because at the beginning of the year, so we had 24 meetings and 6 workshops that were planned. And most scientific meetings are rescheduled and being held online also. We use, so as I said earlier, so Microsoft Team platform that is successfully helping us to perform the online meetings, specifically science meetings. We limited the daily duration due to time zone differences from 12 to 16:30 Madrid time. And you see, as we are having member countries from all around the world, so sometimes the gap with the time can reach 14 hours. So meetings days are slightly extended, for example, from 5 to 6, and agenda are limited to most relevant issues. We noted major impacts on research and data collection contracts, for example, that involved field or laboratory work, but computer-based tasks, for example, analysis, have been carried out. On the MCS, so the full impact on the implementation of all MCS measures by CPCs will probably not be known until November 2021, when compliance in 2020 will be fully assessed. Some difficulties in meeting deadlines for information submission, for example, are being noted, but in general, compliance reporting requirements remains overall quite high. So the major area which required decision-taking by the Commission were the regional observer programs. ICAT implements 2 such programs, one on transshipment and one for Eastern Atlantic and Mediterranean bluefin tuna. ICAT has continued to operate as far as possible, both programs during this pandemic. Some delays have been also noted in reporting of monthly or quarterly catch reports for tropical tunas. In some cases, CPC have indicated that the delay is due to effects of COVID-19, or have indicated that data are provisional because of some difficulties the pandemic has created in verification. In some cases, no reports have been received, although it is not clear whether this non-reporting is a direct effect of the pandemic. But we believe that it is a significant factor. And on the whole, we are still discussing the way forward. We are fine-tuning, in fact, after the decision of not having plenary of the SCRS, so the scientific committee, and the annual session of the Commission meeting in 2020, with the purpose of focus only on major relevant issues. In the days to come, so we will normally finalize this fine-tuning of the consultation process. Nevertheless, some CPCs informed about the challenges like power fluctuation, internet interruption, and other communication challenges they face that could hinder their adequate participation in online meeting, especially when many discussions or negotiations are needed. I just remind that we have more than 70% of our member countries that are developing countries. So it is something very significant. We are learning that when needed, there are still valid solutions that can support the satisfactory continuity of main activities, and still building of decision is possible. But the value of in-person meetings remains still very high. In the future, we will need to build the resilience with more flexibility and pragmatism. I think these have never been a reality ever. So for example, for our case, we will have a progressive return of staff to office where I am today, just I left home just to have all the commodities and enough light to be able to have this meeting with you, an optimal situation. We will also continue to use the technology for online meetings. So as it has been a great success for many of our scientific meetings, we have managed to push these agendas so far. We will also learn a lot from others. We have a lot of lessons to learn from others. We will anticipate and prepare as much as possible. And in that preparation, in line with that also, it is also very advisable that meeting, for example, to have this, to have a mechanism for a prompt and adapted response in similar situations. So we are experiencing, just to find a final conclusion, we are experiencing exceptional circumstances and exceptional solutions are sought. In this situation, learning seems to be the key, as almost everything is new. That is, for this time being, all I have to share. And I thank you very much for your attention. Thank you, Nicolas. Over to you for the time.
Merci beaucoup, Monsieur Manel, pour cette intervention par laquelle vous nous éclairez sur le travail délicat pendant cette crise. Donc, votre siège, comme vous l'avez dit, est fermé depuis le mois de mars, comme celui de la CGPM d'ailleurs, à travailler aux côtés de ses membres. Je vais tout à l'heure donner la parole à Monsieur Abdelawed Benabou, qui représente une autre organisation de pêche, la COMAFAT. Elle aussi est un partenaire très important de la CGPM depuis 2015, si mes souvenirs sont bons. Donc, l'intervention de M. Benabou sera faite en français. Et cette fois, on va avoir une PPT qui sera partagée sur l'écran avec l'audience. C'est à vous pour votre intervention, M. Benabou. Allez-y.
Merci, Nicolas. J'attends, voilà, donc j'attends que le partage, voilà, c'est fait. Donc, bonjour à tous, encore une fois. Je voudrais quand même insister pour féliciter la CGPM, l'équipe du secrétariat de la CGPM pour cette initiative d'organiser cette série de webinaires. Et je le remercie particulièrement pour m'avoir donné l'occasion de co-animer ce premier webinaire sur le thème de l'expérience des organisations internationales en réponse à la crise du COVID-19. Bon, je pense qu'il y a eu des petits soucis au niveau du micro. Donc, je voudrais rappeler ce que c'est que la COMAFAT. La COMAFAT, c'est la conférence ministérielle pour la coopération halieutique entre les États africains et rappeler exactement par quelques chiffres l'importance du secteur de la pêche pour les économies des États membres. Donc, le secteur de la pêche et de l'aquaculture est d'une importance capitale pour les États de l'espace COMAFAT sur le plan économique, social et nutritionnel des populations. Quelques chiffres pour illustrer cette assertion. Donc, ce sont 22 États, 15 km de côte, 5,3 millions de kilomètres carrés de zones économiques exclusives, plus de 350 millions d'habitants, une production qui, malin bon an, avoisine les 5 millions de tonnes et une contribution au PIB des États membres qui varie entre 1,5 à 17% du PIB. En termes d'emploi, c'est plus ou moins 7 millions de personnes employées et en termes de recettes d'exportation, c'est plus entre 25 et 30% des exportations de ces États-là. Mais surtout en termes d'apport de contribution à la sécurité alimentaire, plus de 40% de l'apport en protéines animales. C'est dire un petit peu l'importance du secteur sur le plan sécurité alimentaire. Donc, c'est un secteur qui est important en tant que pourvoyeur d'emplois, en tant que contributeur à la réduction de la pauvreté et en tant que participation à la sécurité alimentaire. Quels sont les objectifs de notre organisation? Donc, notre organisation a pour principal objectif de promouvoir une coopération effective en matière de gestion et d'exploitation durable de ressources halieutiques, de manière à dynamiser l'ensemble des secteurs économiques nationaux. Le deuxième objectif, qui est un petit peu sous-jacent, c'est relever le défi de l'autosuffisance alimentaire. La Comafat a un rôle purement consultatif. Je pense qu'on est en avance là, au niveau du slide. Voilà. La Comafat a un rôle purement consultatif et ne dispose pas de prérogatives de gestion ni du pouvoir d'établir des mesures de protection contraignantes. Elle ne peut donc ni fixer les objectifs, les limites aux captures, ni à l'effort de pêche, ni de rétablir les mesures techniques et de contrôler leur application. Par rapport à la question, pour revenir un petit peu à notre sujet, qui est l'évaluation préliminaire des incidences de la COVID et les conséquences sur cette crise sur le travail de notre organisation, au niveau du secrétariat, comme cela a été rappelé par les principaux panélistes qui ont parlé, donc nous sommes pratiquement mis à l'arrêt. Je rappelle juste que le siège de la Comafat se trouve à Rabat, au Maroc. Et très tôt, les autorités marocaines avaient décrété l'état d'urgence sanitaire, ce qui s'est traduit par la fermeture des frontières et la restriction des mouvements en ville et entre les villes, ce qui nous a conduit à annuler d'abord 3 grandes activités qui étaient programmées pour le mois de mars. Je ne vous parle pas des conséquences financières de cette annulation, puisque nous avions tout organisé, nous avons tout mis en place au niveau logistique. Deuxième conséquence, c'est que nous avons été amenés à fermer les locaux et assigner le personnel au télétravail et à réduire notre travail en fait au niveau de ce télétravail au strict minimum qui s'est pratiquement limité à la gestion des affaires administratives. Trois principales raisons à cette situation. D'abord, et je pense que cela a été le cas de l'ensemble, c'est que nous avons été réellement, et je m'excuse du terme, sonnés par ces situations qui étaient soudaines et inédites. La seconde raison, c'est la difficile adaptation. Nous n'étions pas tous habitués au télétravail. Et la troisième raison, c'est la difficulté liée à la qualité d'Internet, particulièrement dans notre région, et je pense que cela a été signalé par notre ami Manel de l'ICAT. Ensuite, notre calendrier a également été, et notre façon de travailler a également été dictée par le calendrier des autres organisations. Nous avons entendu pas mal de réunions qui ont été annulées. L'ICAT a annulé les principales rencontres, les ateliers, l'annulation du profit, la conférence balnéaire internationale également qui a annulé et d'autres. Maintenant, au niveau des États, la conséquence de cette crise au niveau de nos États membres, mais je voudrais d'abord avancer quelques remarques préliminaires. Nous n'avons pas lancé une étude exhaustive et donc scientifique pour voir cet impact. Ce sont plutôt des impressions et quelques événements qui nous ont été rapportés par les États membres. Il s'agit ensuite des premières conséquences. Et je pense que dans le titre de votre webinaire, on parle d'évaluation préliminaire. La crise, de toute façon, est toujours en cours. Et l'impact a été variable en fonction des mesures de confinement prises par les autorités nationales et leur degré d'application. Quoi qu'il en soit, au niveau des États, la pandémie du Covid-19 a secoué des économies des États à travers le monde et l'Afrique et nos États membres ne font pas exception. L'impact est d'autant plus sérieux, particulièrement. Je pense qu'il faut aller à l'autre slide, s'il vous plaît. Voilà. L'impact est plus sérieux en raison particulièrement de la population qui travaille dans le secteur informel. Les restrictions de circulation ont réduit l'accès au marché, ce qui a entraîné des pertes pour les acteurs de la chaîne de valeur de la pêche et a découragé la poursuite de la production, de la transformation et de la commercialisation des produits de la pêche. Les répercussions sociales se sont faites beaucoup plus sentir, en particulier sur les sections affaiblies des travailleurs, à savoir les pêcheurs, les femmes travaillant dans la pêche et les travailleurs de la transformation. L'implication donc sur toute la chaîne de valeur était effective, mais à vrai dire, et dans tous les États, les activités de pêche ne se sont pas complètement arrêtées en raison du rôle essentiel des produits de la pêche dans la contribution à la sécurité alimentaire dans cette région du monde. Même si elles ne se sont pas arrêtées, le secteur a été quand même ébranlé. Au niveau de… Bon, nous allons constater des implications directes sur toute la chaîne de valeur du secteur de la pêche, même si ceux-ci n'ont pas été de la même importance et du même niveau. Selon le degré d'application des mesures, ou qu'il s'agisse de la pêche artisanale, côtière ou industrielle, les conséquences ont été plus ou moins ressenties. Donc, l'impact n'a pas été uniforme, même si cet impact a été quand même touché au niveau de l'ensemble de la chaîne de valeur au niveau du secteur de la pêche. Nous avons relevé que les acteurs de la pêche artisanale étaient plus touchés que les autres, et je parle ici des pêcheurs, des femmes transformatrices, des marieurs et marieuses et des transporteurs qui ont été très affectés dans certains de nos États membres. Le respect des restrictions imposées dans la majorité de nos États au rassemblement des personnes présente une difficulté particulière pour le segment artisanal où chaque étape de la filière, il y a des contacts rapprochés. Nous savons très bien que la proximité des pêcheurs sur les pirogues, les femmes sur les sites de transformation, sur les marchés de poissons, vous connaissez tous le marché africain, vous avez quelques images ici, se caractérisent par une proximité, ce qui en fait une population fortement exposée à la contamination par le virus. Nous avons relevé dans beaucoup de pays des foyers qui se sont manifestés particulièrement dans certains marchés, dans certaines unités de transformation. Au niveau du commerce intrarégional également, les limites imposées par les autorités sanitaires des États ont fortement perturbé la circulation des marchandises et des personnes, ce qui s'est traduit par des répercussions sur le commerce interrégional des produits de la pêche. Également, au niveau des approvisionnements en intrants, il a été rapporté que l'activité de pêche dans certains États s'est trouvée perturbée en raison des perturbations constatées dans les circuits de distribution des intrants qui sont nécessaires pour perpétuer l'activité. On peut passer à l'autre slide, s'il vous plaît. Et donc, quelques exemples pour des impacts négatifs dans la zone Comafat, ou pour résumer un petit peu les principaux constats que nous avons relevés. D'abord, il y a eu une interruption, particulièrement au début de la crise, une interruption de la crise de la surveillance des pêches. Dans de nombreux pays et membres, on nous a rapporté que des restrictions de mobilité, dues aux restrictions de mobilité et de réaffectation des fonds, l'activité de surveillance des pêches s'est arrêtée. Il y a eu également des restrictions de l'accès des navires au port, ce qui a eu des impacts pour le réapprovisionnement, l'entretien, la rotation des équipages et d'autres services pour les navires, ce qui s'est traduit automatiquement par… je pense qu'on est en avance sur le slide là. Est-ce qu'on peut retourner au slide auparavant, s'il vous plaît? Voilà. Et donc, non, je pense que… Allez-y, le slide suivant, s'il vous plaît. Bon, on peut rester là. Donc, on a constaté deux phénomènes qui nous ont été rapportés. D'abord, l'augmentation du nombre d'actes de piraterie dans la zone particulièrement du golfe de Guinée, mais également beaucoup d'actes de pêche INN qui se sont manifestés. Les gens ont profité, bon, il y a des gens malveillants ont profité justement de cette baisse au niveau des contrôles pour procéder à des pêches INN dans la région. Donc, en résumé, donc, nous avons Je pense que vous avez une slide qui a sauté, mais ce n'est pas grave. Hein. Donc, on a senti une interruption de la surveillance. Non, 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 vous retournez en arrière, monsieur. Il y a une slide qui a... Avant. Voilà, là, vous restez là, s'il vous plaît. Donc, il y a une interruption, on a dit, de la surveillance des pêches, puisqu'on a constaté une augmentation des cas de pêche INN, des restrictions de l'accès des navires au port, la réduction des activités de post-récolte, puisqu'il y a eu pas mal de découragement, une baisse des exportations qui est due à la fermeture des marchés internationaux et la réduction du commerce régional du poisson en raison, bien sûr, de la fermeture des frontières entre les États des pays de la Commonwealth. Donc, en général, donc, il y a une fragilité des systèmes, ce qu'on peut constater, une fragilité des systèmes de production et d'échange de poissons, une faiblesse des infrastructures pour le transport et le stockage des produits de la pêche et la vulnérabilité de cette catégorie de travailleurs que sont les pêcheurs, particulièrement au niveau de la pêche artisanale.
Monsieur Benabou, est-ce que je peux vous inviter à conclure, s'il vous plaît, la présentation?
Très bien. Ben, je suis en train de conclure justement donc un petit peu les grandes leçons qui sont tirées. Je pense qu'aujourd'hui, nous avons été contraints de développer une manière de travailler qui est différente, mais que nous sommes confrontés à des difficultés, comme je disais tout à l'heure, en raison particulièrement de cette difficulté de connexion dans les États membres, qui n'est que, comme cela a été signalé par M. Manet, nous sommes la plupart des pays en voie de développement. En tout cas, des opportunités pour la pêche qui se sont offertes, c'est que nous pouvons améliorer les pratiques de gouvernance à plusieurs niveaux dans le secteur de la pêche, mettre en œuvre de nouveaux modèles de développement pour le secteur de pêche dans nos pays, développer des outils et des services numériques pour mieux améliorer la gouvernance des pêches, accroître les mécanismes participatifs de la participation de la société civile, des citoyens, des entreprises à la gouvernance des pêches dans nos États et généraliser les mécanismes de protection sociale pour le segment informel particulièrement. Voilà un petit peu en gros, puisqu'on m'invite à terminer très rapidement, un petit peu les leçons que nous pouvons tirer. Et je pense que de toute crise naît, je crois, beaucoup d'espoir, beaucoup de nouvelles méthodes. Et je pense que pour nous aussi, c'est une opportunité de développer de nouvelles manières de travailler. Et bien sûr, on espère que quand même cette pandémie, cette crise puisse... en tout cas, merci encore une fois pour m'avoir invité à participer à ce webinaire. Merci à vous tous.
Et merci, M. Benabou, pour la présentation qui sera partagée avec tous les participants. Et pour introduire la prochaine présentation par M. Gaetano Leone. And we know that Brazilian fisheries can only thrive in a clean and well-preserved marine ecosystem. So the time has come to devote attention to the work of the two regional CIS conventions that operate in the GFCM area of application, and to have a look at the way they're dealing and then be dealing with the impacts of COVID-19. We're going to start, as I said, with a presentation by Mr. Gaetano Leone. I will ask M. Benabou to muter, s'il vous plaît. Est-ce que vous pouvez mettre le mute sur les micros? Okay, Gaetano, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Nicola, again, and Abdella, and good afternoon to all. It's a pleasure to be with you this afternoon. A quick introduction on the Barcelona Convention for the Protection of the Marine Environment and Coastal Area of the Mediterranean, whose Secretariat is with UNEP and that I lead here in Greece. I'd like to say that COVID is directly impacting all three dimensions of our work, of our institution. The first one is the institutional dimension, with made of the 22 contracting parties, so 21 coastal states plus the European Union. Secretariat is with UNEP, I said. We have a compliance committee. We are learning a lot from the compliance committee of GFCM. We have regional activity centers all around the Mediterranean basin. And of course, we have partners. And also in this, I need to pay homage to GFCM because we are considered a good practice in the entire world, the relationship between the work that we do and GFCM. The second dimension is regulatory. Being a UN treaty, the convention has a legally binding nature, is complemented and supported by a number of protocols and other decisions that are taken by the contracting parties. The third one is about action and implementation. What we do have large programs, projects, we have for almost 5 decades now, able to show some concrete impact in what in making our vision a reality for the Mediterranean. Now, all this obviously is directly impacted by COVID. In a situation which is already in itself very difficult for the Mediterranean. I mean, if we think once again that obviously the way we manage and use our resources has an obvious impact on the lives of future generation, and we look there at the blue economy, which is one of the subjects of this afternoon's discussion, and at the Mediterranean in particular, we can see that COVID compounds already a very challenging worldwide. UNCTAD says that blue economy accounts for up to 7% of the global GDP. And that if the oceans were a nation, it would rank as the 7th largest economy in the world. And we've been working on blue economy now since the first time it was mentioned was in 2012, continues to be as a center of consideration in the work in all the 3 dimensions that I mentioned before. But pressures, unfortunately, deriving from human activities, especially those depending on marine resources, are directly negatively impacted. We see it also just by reading the media. Look at the impact on tourism, which has virtually come to a halt in the Mediterranean. And this is an economic activity that provides work to millions of people around the coast. Look at fishing, we've heard already about this. Look at the pressure of shipping. And look also at what's happening right now, at the impact, the increasing exponentially impact of climate change. The IPCC says that the Mediterranean is one of the most vulnerable areas in the world. So some Mediterranean economies have already been dramatically hit by the pandemics. All blue economy sectors are being negatively affected. Travel, tourism, I mentioned already, maritime transport, fisheries, seafood productions. Mediterranean coastal zones are suffering heavily from confinement measures as their livelihood depend on limited set of marine-based activities. One thing that we have been focusing our attention on is marine litter. And according to the Polytechnic in Turin, in my home country, Italy, during the lifting of the lockdown phase, it is expected that 1 billion masks and 500 million gloves per month will be used. Where is all this going to end up? In a region where, unfortunately, waste management is absolutely below the standards that we all would want. Some of the largest amounts of municipal solid waste per person occur in the Mediterranean, up to 760 kilos per year per person in some areas. And all this increased now by the single-use of medical supplies that we need for COVID is creating a situation that is very difficult to handle, also politically, because we have been arguing in favor against single-use plastic. And here we are with the need, obviously, for obvious reasons related to health, to in fact having to support the use of such single-use instruments. The other political aspects that I believe is very much hit by COVID is the crisis, in fact, of multilateralism. And this is something that is important for all of us. The crisis of the idea of an association of nations. We've seen very rapidly mistrust growing for any form of scientific authority, for any form of governmental decision, centralized decision, an institution, for any form of international collaboration. We have, as soon as the virus hit, we have immediately run into the closing of borders, into the running for who finds and who uses first the vaccine. And I think this is going to have an impact directly on all of us working on international cooperation. The good thing in all this, however, is the fact that it's an opportunity to build back better. In fact, I would say it's once in a generation opportunity, which translates into also a responsibility to correct our relationship with the natural world, including the world seas and oceans. Let me quote here what Peter Thompson said a few days ago on the occasion of the Oceans Day. Peter Thompson, the special envoy of the Secretary General for the Oceans, he said that obviously the future of human health, also of human health, in addition to sustainable food and socio-economic systems of renewable energy and of a stable climate, relies on a healthy oceans. And that's what we are doing. So in this context, also enforcement becomes a difficulty. It's obvious that the environment, as often in moment of crisis, moves to the back burner, becomes a secondary issue for obvious reasons, and sometimes also for the right reasons, that we need to put livelihoods, in front of our priorities. But building back better is an obligation for all of us, and it entails revisiting our relationship with nature. So we need to take advantage of all the economic recovery programs that are being put in motion around the Mediterranean, region. We have developed, as UNEP-MAP, a strategic response to the COVID-19 crisis to support our contracting parties and our partners. And this paper builds on some blocks that I will just list here. Nicola, I don't want to go beyond the 10 minutes. So the first one is about adequate waste management response in the context of medical and humanitarian emergency phase. And this is part of our work on pollution, on waste management, on hazardous waste in particular. The second block is change for nature and people, which is what I said already before, from understanding better how to respond, assess and respond to zoonotic threats, which is something that where there is a huge scientific gap, to better understanding poverty, human and environmental environmental health linkages, and as part of this, we have launched something that is going to be relevant to the response to COVID, which is the possible designation of the entire Mediterranean as an emission-controlled area for sulfur oxide. So emissions coming from ships, making progress on climate, biodiversity, and chemical crisis, and finally investing, as I said, in the future in sustainable consumption and production. This is something that we cannot escape from, that we need to keep absolutely central in all the priorities that we have. I just want to spend one last moment on the new way of doing environmental governance. This has already been mentioned before, and the constraints in a setup like the UN, such as ours, that we are facing in this new way, is that it really questions a lot of the assumption that we've made so far. Decision making that requires negotiations and physical presence of people. need to provide translation, which is absolutely crucial, but still we are having difficulties with interpretation, simultaneous interpretation in 6 UN languages online. Meetings that, don't involve anymore the physical presence, with an obvious impact, I believe, both in positive terms, we are saving resources, but also in negative terms. There is nothing like a one-to-one meeting. So I will stop here because I'm taken more than the time that was allotted to me. But I think I want to look at it in a positive way. And I think we all need to look at this as an opportunity to do better, to build a different system, to build a response to COVID that in fact supports livelihoods and ecosystems. Thank you very much, Nicola and colleagues.
No, thank you very much. You actually touched upon some very thought-provoking issues and aspects. And it will be very interesting for us as your partner organizations in the fisheries domain to keep working together and then tackling this problem that, problems actually that COVID-19 will bring about in a region and obviously beyond. So thank you once again for your intervention. So last but not least, I have the pleasure to give the floor to Ms. Irina Makarenko for the final presentation of the panel. And we are now kind of sliding eastwards toward the Black Sea region, which is known for the very challenges it has been facing. So now we have a new challenge that is kind of add up to the list, namely the COVID-19 crisis. So who better than Irina to bring us up to speed and with the support of a PPT. Irina, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Nicola, and thanks again for being given the floor. In fact, to be brief, I could just use the last slide of Mr. Darius Campbell to present what we have been feeling since the COVID-19 entered in March. And I wanted to send you my greetings from Istanbul and Turkey, which is actually one of the countries which were, let's say, severely affected by this virus. And let me just present you a couple of slides that I prepared, not knowing that Darius would have the better slides. So let me just tell you what we were doing since March. And let me start with quoting the UNEP Executive Director, Ms. Inger Andersen, saying that the COVID-19 was actually a very strong warning today that our planet must change. And I think nobody can really argue with me that the world will never be the same. And actually, all that happened really much exposed many fragilities in our economies and also inequalities that we face. And I think that now there is a highlighting of the need for resilience, innovation, and collaboration, even closer collaboration. And again, let me thank the FAO and GFCM for bringing this item to our agenda, because again, we need to really assess now how to move further, how fast we can really address the post-COVID-19 in our regions, and also how deeply we were affected. So as my colleagues were saying, we are feeling similar feelings, and we also undoubtedly were really much impacted. And our, the Secretariat is quite small. We are just 3 people. We were staying home since March, and in fact, I went to office one day, but then I was informed that in Turkey, so there was a kind of a second wave. So I was advised to come back home, and I'm still working from home. And of course, our working program of the Black Sea Commission was, let's say, affected by this regime of our work. And as many other colleagues mentioned, it led to the postponement and freezing of some of our major activities. Normally, we are having in spring all our technical meetings, so-called advisory groups, and many other more technical events which are foreseen in our work program. So all of them were postponed, and I would say that that was a really direct effect of the COVID-19. This lockdown that we had is also indirectly affected our collaboration with our partners, our correspondence and interaction with the presidency in the Black Sea Commission, and I'm still having a doubt if our upcoming 38th Black Sea Commission's regular meeting will be happening and in which format. And as other colleagues were mentioning, so some of the technical meetings could be taken online, but there are some meetings having this political or let's call it collaborative nature, where we would really prefer the offline format. And that's why, you know, we already suffering from the postponement of many important meetings, such as the Sustainable Ocean Initiative meetings, some meetings scheduled under our UNEP Regional Sea Conventions and Action Plans agenda, some workshops under the World Ocean Assessment 2, and, you know, many other meetings, very important meetings that we were expected, and they were partially suspended. And, you know, someone was mentioning the World Ocean Day. So this year we spent it in isolation, and I put for your attention what we could capture, you know, from internet. So for the first time, we could see, sitting home, we could see some dolphins playing near the, you know, Bosphorus part of Istanbul. So this World Ocean Day was really isolating for us. So I wanted to mention that all our 6 member states, all our contracting parties, of course, are taking the individual measures to somehow mitigate, to somehow, you know, make some stimulus packages to support the recovery of the economies and tourism, as it was mentioned. We have, of course, very similar story with Mediterranean Sea, with tourism, with shipping activities. And we are not, you know, staying aside of this process. We're also planning to introduce the dedicated research, some dedicated discussions, which would be relevant to the consequences of COVID-19. So we are planning to consider this issue on the agenda of our upcoming advisory groups. As you may know, we are not only covering fisheries and biodiversity, we also cover the integrated coastal zone management, shipping activities in the Black Sea region, and of course the pollution, as you know, the name of the convention was initially to protect the Black Sea from pollution. We of course will have this item on the agenda of our upcoming regular meeting, and we were also thinking to introduce a dedicated chapter to our upcoming next Black Sea State of Environment report. I think this will be very interesting to see how this affected all the 6 areas of activities that I was mentioning. We also probably will be considering this issue during elaboration of our next Black Sea Strategic Action Plan. And here I also have some, you know, challenges to foresee how the ministerial meeting will happen in the Black Sea, because it was planned for already, you know, it was already delayed for a couple of years, but now it's becoming even more challenging. So regarding the annual reporting that the Black Sea Commission is collecting from countries, as the deadline is normally set, so we currently are not really aware of all the challenges that our countries may face when submitting their reports to us. I think we could discuss this issue after August. And of course, we are trying to follow and kind of help the projects that are being implemented in the region. And, you know, here we made our best. So coming to conclusions, I didn't want to take much of your time. I should say that despite the challenges and despite the situation really impacted our planning and led to postponement of some activities, we should really say that we were trying our best to implement our work program and the provisions of convention itself. And I could foresee, because we already started preparation for our regular meeting, that it would not really much affect the implementation, and there were many important initiatives that we managed to jump in, even having the COVID with us. So I can mention here the EU for Ocean platform. We became partners just 2 weeks ago. We also joined some dedicated meetings of the European Commission. In fact, that was very positive. The only positive side of COVID was that eventually I could join the meeting of the technical group on marine litter, which I could never join because we never had finances to travel. But I mean, of course, I'm kind of being sarcastic here. So, but still, you know, we were trying our best to follow the work program. And I think that in the nearest future, we should really resume all the activities that I mentioned. We should introduce the consequences into work of our organizations. And lastly, I would like again to thank you so much for your initiative and to try to coordinate our efforts in response to COVID. And also, I wanted to mention it in my previous slides, but we also have memorandums of understanding with the GFCM and with the UNEP-MAP, and we also couldn't really meet and discuss our issues of bilateral and trilateral collaboration. So I really think that now we should think of a new format and try to introduce all these consequences of COVID into our activities as soon as possible. So I wish you all good health and serenity in these difficult times. And I would like also to thank you for your attention. Thank you.
Irina, thank you very much. Once again, another interesting presentation, and we do share your hope for all of us to resume very soon our activities. Now, in principle, we should wind up the webinar now, but we have been liaising with interpreters. They kindly agreed on giving us an additional 15 minutes. Obviously, this slot does not give us enough time to address all the questions of people attending, but some of the participants. However, as I said, we will be taking notes. You will get replies by email next week. So we're going to just take on a first come, first serve basis a couple of questions. Now, there is one first question that was tabled by Wilmine Miao from the FAO. It's about the GFCM presentation. So I would suggest that Mr. Schroer replies to this question. And he wants to know, in connection with the drop in production, the sale price, whether the information that you presented, Mrs. Schroer, refers to capture fisheries or aquaculture or both. So this is actually a request for clarification. If you can quickly address this request coming from Miao. The floor is yours, Mrs. Schroer.
Oui, c'est une excellente opportunité pour apporter de la clarification donc, à cette question. En fait, la baisse de la production et des prix a été une caractéristique aussi bien de la pêche que de l'aquaculture, sauf qu'il y a eu un décalage. On sait très bien le mode de travail, surtout pour la pêche, donc les bateaux qui ont des durées de sortie qui se limitent à 1, 2, 3 jours. Et dès que donc, il y a eu ces décisions, première décision de confinement, rapidement on a eu donc, des fermetures, donc des fermetures de restaurants, donc fermetures de frontières. Et c'était normal que l'effet a été d'abord pour la pêche. Donc, aussi bien une diminution de la production que des prix. Les prix, on comprend bien qu'immédiatement, n'ayant pas les restaurants, il n'y a pas la frontière. Donc, on ne pouvait pas, donc il y avait plus d'offres que de demandes, et donc les prix ont chuté. Par rapport à l'aquaculture, on sait très bien que, indépendamment de l'activité d'élevage, qu'il y a des périodes, des opérations de ramassage de poissons qui peuvent être plus ou moins contrôlées par rapport à la pêche. Et là, donc, il y a eu la même constatation, baisse de production et de prix, mais un peu décalée. Donc, on a vu le résultat, donc on a noté cette baisse un peu plus décalée dans le temps. Mais pour répondre plus concrètement, donc la baisse des prix et de la production était la même pour les deux secteurs.
Merci beaucoup, Monsieur Schroer. Moi, maintenant, je propose, on a une très bonne question qui vient de M. Najim Mohamed de l'Institut agronomique à 102. Je propose, vu que la question, à mon avis, est très générale, qu'on ouvre un peu la discussion. Je vais demander à chaque panéliste de répondre de manière très concise à cette question. Je vais la lire en anglais. Donc, on fera un petit tour de table. On pourrait commencer, tandis que vous êtes là, par vous, Monsieur Schroer, et après, on refait le tour, Darius et les autres. Donc, la question, je vais la lire en anglais. What lessons can be learned from the first wave of COVID-19 for us to better prepare for a possible return of the pandemic, for a second wave? Hopefully, this is not going to be the case, but the question is very pertinent. So, Mr. Schroer, let's start with you.
Rapidement, d'abord, un retour, une deuxième vague, c'est loin d'être notre souhait, mais c'est une éventualité si l'on se réfère donc aux spécialistes. Alors là, rapidement, je dirais que pour les types d'activités qui peuvent être gérées à distance, je pense qu'on a acquis des leçons assez intéressantes et nous pouvons profiter de ce qu'on est en train de faire maintenant pour pouvoir le continuer. Évidemment, nous devons continuer à observer les mêmes règles, les règles les plus strictes et les plus efficaces selon les spécialistes, selon nos autorités, donc nos organisations. Il faut continuer à les suivre. Le seul problème que je voudrais souligner, il y a des activités importantes telles que des sessions statutaires, donc sont les réunions de governing bodies. C'est des réunions qui nécessitent, donc, qui sont établies et très bien définies au niveau des textes établissements de nos organisations, donc, des critères très clairs donc, par rapport aux négociations, par rapport au processus de prise de décision, par rapport à l'acceptation des observateurs, par rapport aux accréditations. Donc, les réunions statutaires, ils sont très bien définies. Mais évidemment, on l'a tous dit, c'est une crise qui est nouvelle, personne n'était préparé et il va de soi que je ne pense pas qu'il y ait des textes existants qui ont pu prévenir ce genre de situation. Maintenant, on espère qu'il y ait un peu de répit afin que l'on puisse réunir nos pays, poser la question, trouver des mécanismes, les adopter. Donc, c'est des mécanismes d'adaptation à la situation, de manière à pouvoir aller modifier nos textes, nos règlements intérieurs qui nous permettent d'être prêts éventuellement s'il y a une autre vague ou une autre crise similaire. Maintenant, la leçon est bien apprise. Il faut que les pays, au niveau de leurs textes, les établissements, qu'il faut qu'ils prévoient des mesures assez spéciales et spécifiques pour ce genre de situation.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Schroer. Now, I will ask the same question to Darius Campbell. So what lessons can be learned from the first wave of COVID in view of a potential, possible, hopefully not, God forbid, second wave of the pandemic? Darius, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Well, I guess from our experience, we're not really out of the first wave in a way. For the experience of NIAFC, I'm saying. Our fisheries activities, our big double checking, are basically carrying on as normal. The catches are normal, if not increased. So I think we need to learn the lessons, which we won't have the information yet. Are we managing to do the control and enforcement as effectively as we normally do? So that's going to have to be a lesson for the contracting parties and for us in the Secretariat to make sure that we learn. We can carry on monitoring and do what we need to do, even in the absence of the port inspections, which again, not all of them are restored yet. On the other side, again, I say we're certainly not out of the crisis in the sense that we still cannot hold a meeting between our contracting parties because the officials in the European Union, for instance, and in Norway can't travel. In fact, most of our officials can't travel, so we still can't hold a meeting. So we're still in the middle of that. Whether there's a second wave or not doesn't affect that. We can't do that. So I think what we're trying to do now is to rapidly continue learning. How do we make an effective meeting happen virtually or mixing it with a smaller physical meeting? I'm really excited about technology. It's growing, growing, and growing, and people's experience is growing. So I think we need to do a continual learning about that, how to hold effective meetings. And I think we need a bit of more imagination now amongst our heads of delegation and our contracting parties to be able to say, oh, I can't do this virtually. They can, I think they can do it virtually. And as I say, there's opportunities to actually enhance engagement from country. I noted the points about poorer communications from certain countries, but also there is an opportunity of saving huge amounts of money, not emitting tons of carbon as we go to our exciting meetings in New York or whatever. So I think we're still in the middle of learning, even if before we get to a second wave, if second waves happen, we should be better prepared if we do this much more as a normal way of meeting, not just a thing that we're going to go back to business as usual. We shouldn't go back to business as usual. So yeah, I think that's my thoughts. We're still in the middle in many ways. Thank you.
Thank you, Darius, for the very down-to-earth approach. I must say that, and it's really, I think, resonates with a number of different things that are still happening. You are right. We're still and the first wave, and we need to learn from that as much as possible. I will now pass it over to Camille for him to also share some of his views concerning what we have learned so far and the way we could respond to a potential second crisis should that even, eat the international community. Camille, floor is yours.
Yeah, thank you, Nicola, and thanks also for the question that is asked. And I have to say that in real, as I said it in my presentation, that in this situation, learning seems to be the key, and we are learning. So it has been something that happened suddenly. So no one was prepared to such level of impact, but we are learning by going through different processes that are helping us to test ways of handling some issues. And so sure, all those gaps will be filled, at least to face similar cases, as I insisted in during my presentation. And correction are already being, provided in some cases that the gaps were identified very quickly. So correction has been provided very immediately. So I think the thing will be still keeping on learning from each other, and we have also, so we have done something, maybe another organization or another entity have done it better. So we'll have to grab that and optimize and use it as a lesson learned from that. And if I may insist, I will say also learning will be so the key in this situation and correct the gaps. Thank you.
Very wise words. I fully agree with you, Camille. You really have a very good point there. Now, Monsieur Benabou, est-ce que vous avez de votre part commentaires par rapport à la question de mécénagie? Vous voulez nous dire aussi qu'est-ce que vous pensez par rapport à les choses que nous avons appris avec cette crise pour le moment?
Merci donc pour M. Najib pour cette question. Moi, je pense qu'elle nous donne l'opportunité, bien sûr, de pouvoir répondre, mais surtout, je voudrais préalable formuler un peu, c'est que nous puissions sortir de cette crise, que, comme ça a été dit, est toujours en cours, mais surtout qu'il n'y ait plus de nouvelles crises, hein, donc c'est un petit peu notre espoir. Donc, cela dit, je disais dans ma première intervention que cette crise est une crise inédite, soudaine. Personne ne peut imaginer les conséquences, en tout cas, de cette ampleur. Et fatalement, nous ne sortirons plus comme avant. Et je pense que nous avons appris des leçons, énormément de leçons. Et à l'avenir, nous sommes obligés de nous réadapter et de tenir compte justement des leçons apprises de cette crise actuelle. Même si on est forcé peut-être de réadapter nos statuts, on trouvera la solution. En tout cas, de toute crise, il y a une renaissance, et de cette renaissance, je suis sûr et certain que nous serons meilleurs mieux préparés pour l'avenir. Merci.
Inshallah. Gaetano, floor is yours.
Thanks, Nicola. Well, what have we learned? I think the first lesson, at least for me, is that it's clear that there is we knew it already, but we've seen it very, very clearly that there is a direct link between human activities and impact on the environment. You know, everywhere we've seen the clean waters of the Venice canals or the beautiful wild animals getting in our cities. I'm not saying that anybody should welcome that. The price was too high to be paid for such a result. But I want to say that one thing that for sure all our theories, have proven right. There is a direct impact between human activities and the way the environment develops. The second point is that I think we've learned is that we can work with practices that have a lesser impact. And the very fact, for instance, that we are holding all these meetings, conferences, etc., through very effective, I find, virtual means. If you think of all the people that would have been flying around in order to make it happen, even only that may be very simplistic, but I believe it's something that is significant and it's important we can do it. The world continues to exist and to work, even if we are all stuck at home, and at least in terms of the work that we are doing, obviously up to a point. The third one for me is the most important, and it's the fact that solidarity must continue to be really the guiding values for people like us who work in the international community, because there is the danger of increasing inequality in a moment of crisis like this is very, very real.
Very, you make a very good point. I fully agree, and then thank you very much for sharing those views, those 3 points of yours. Irina, you have the last word, so please, beam us up.
Thank you. I just support the previous speakers, and I should say that even if we were not that much ready, and even if we already faced some problems like of political nature and bureaucratical nature before the COVID, we still managed, I would say. But that was like this Mario game, now we are entering the next level. And as I mentioned, we will see what's going to happen with reporting, with our regular meeting, where we really need the physical presence of people. And I'm sure we will learn even more, and we will also manage. But this is now, the next step. So I should say that the first step we somehow managed. Thank you.
Thank you, Irina. Thank you very much. So, ladies and gentlemen, we have now reached the end of the webinar. I would like to thank once again, on behalf of Mrs. Schroer, all the panelists for bringing their contributions and sharing their experience with us. We have heard many ideas that brought forward a lively discussions. I would also like to thank our audience for their active participation. We have received a huge amount of questions over the last 10 minutes. What I told you at the very beginning of this webinar is that we will collect all the questions. We will be liaising with the panelists. Some of the questions were specifically addressed to our distinguished panelists, so that sometime this week we're going to be able to provide you with a recap, and you will see all the questions, including yours, that we couldn't take during the Q&A, and the accompanying answers to those questions. So bear with us. We cannot do it today, but we will follow up with you. So thank you also to the interpreters. They did an incredible job, and we do appreciate also your flexibility on top of your professionalism. I would like, in concluding, to remind the audience to continue following the GFCM Online Forum, as there will be an additional 2 webinars in the upcoming weeks. The next webinar is scheduled for the 1st of July, that is next week, and we will address the impacts of COVID-19 on the aquaculture sector. With that, goodbye, and thank you for your attendance and participation. This event is now concluded. Thanks to all, and safe continuation.
Goodbye.
Thank you. Goodbye. Thank you
for
very much.
organizing this, GFCM. Well done.
Bye.
Thank you very much, everyone. Interpreters, audiovisual, you've been great as always. Apologies for this delay, but yeah. So thank you very much again. Have a good day.